Hi, and welcome to this Top Tech. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you.
So look, a bit of a phenomenon that's happened, of course, over the years, not least of which because of the Epic, is the growth of stills lenses, which has been great, but stills lenses were never traditionally used in major production.
No, I mean, it's the nature of the cameras have changed. Obviously, the digital electronic cameras have moved into larger sensors, into sensors that are nicely covered by these stills. These cameras have become cheaper. Cameras, especially cameras like the Red, have allowed us to manage the mounts. Before you were locked into a mounting system. Now I can swap a mount in 60 seconds on an Epic. So these high quality optic lenses designed for professional stills work have become a real option. The downside, of course, as probably anyone who's ever used them, is the focusing system is designed for stills work, and it's really unsuitable for professional cinematography.
With an investment of like, maybe a few $1,000s per lens, I don't want to spend $18,000, $25,000 lens on a follow focus. So what have we got here today?
Well, we've got the Redrock micro remote follow focus, and as you're saying, traditionally in cinema terms, the remote RF controlled follow focus systems have been very, very expensive, highly specialised pieces of kit. Redrock, with one or two others, are kind of breaking that mould, and they're building wireless systems, and they're coming in. I won't mention prices, it's changing all the time. Well, from an Australian base, but I suppose in the US you'd be looking around 3,000 odd US dollars.
Now just to be clear about that, that's 3,000 for what you're holding in your hand and everything else to make it actually work.
Absolutely, yes, complete. Depending, of course, how you can configure it, but you'd be looking a little over that and probably a little bit extra. And just backtracking to the stills lenses, and this is an interesting stills lens because this is the Zeiss, the ZE and their ZFs. They have hard stops, which is a real win for follow focus. They still have a limited throw in terms of the rotation of the lens and the focus. And that's one of the major limitations I'm finding. Even on these lenses, focus pullers are having to pull maybe 2 millimeters to get 2, 3, 4 feet.
Yeah, even on this cine-modded lens, we're talking about a huge amount of the travel that's dedicated to an area of focus I don't normally work in.
Absolutely. The mods will rarely change the focus throw because that's inherent in the actual geometry and mechanical design. And a lot of these stills lenses, you might think, well, that's not a bad little throw there, it's pretty good. But if you look at the scales, you'll see that the vast majority of it is in the under 3 to 4 foot range. So the lens I've got sitting on this camera at the moment, it's a Zeiss ZF. It's a 35mm f1.4, so it's a lovely, lovely piece of lens. But from infinity to 3 feet is maybe less than 1 inch. And the rest of it, the other 3 inches or 4 inches of travel is 3 feet and under. So there's very, very short throws, and these systems allow you to remap that.
Right. So that's important, that remapping. I guess let's hit what are the big points with a follow focus. So clearly one of the things we want it to be is responsive. In other words, we don't want to have lag, because if there's lag, as a focus puller would know, it's death.
Death, yeah. That's a given. And the responsiveness here in our tests were very good. The Redrock is right up there. We did measure it scientifically, but perception-wise, we couldn't see a lag.
Okay, so the next thing I want to know is that I've got enough torque from the setup to be able to operate my lenses, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yes, you want to be able to pull them and pull them smoothly. The Redrock, in our tests, and I will qualify this because I think Redrock is deliberately targeting at stills lenses, lightweight lenses, which it does very, very well. We used them successfully with ultra primes, and we used them successfully with the Zeiss ZFs and with stills lenses. We did try them with the older Zeiss Super Speeds, which are going back to the 80s. Some of them are stiff, and the Redrock motor struggled. It couldn't keep up with a fast pull.
Could I upgrade that motor?
Good question. Yes, absolutely. The way I understand it, and proof's always in the pudding, you'd want to test, the protocol, these controllers to the motors is generic. So we did test it with a Loon Video M1, which is a very, very strong motor, and we were able to successfully use it and pull heavy lenses with it. With the Redrock system, you can control smoothness and torque. There's a trade-off.
So as I increase torque, I maybe not
sacrifice smoothness.
Right.
So the idea is your scale of 1 to 10, and you find where your lens fits in. And frankly, once you know what it is, and it's incredibly easy to set up, I find these are good around 7 or 8, but possibly if I was going to go on a heavier lens, I would go to 10. So you'd want to have that prepared. But if you went larger motors, if you want to upgrade this system, you could. Another qualification, this is a single channel system.
I was going to ask you about that, because if I was looking at a Preston or something, one of the biggest price differences is how many channels that unit's running.
Yes, so if I had a Preston, I'd be able to control a zoom motor, the focal length and the iris, as well as the focus, which is fantastic. And if you're doing remote crane work or something like that, that would be a ginormous plus. But, so this system is a budget system, it's a single channel, but I know for my work, that covers me 99% of the time I want to change the focus. The iris I'm less concerned about, and I'm frankly rarely using zooms. And if I did have a zoom, I'm not likely to want to motorise the zoom unless I was in a crane and I was in there all day and it was going to stay there. And we'd need that flexibility, then this wouldn't be the system.
Okay, so if I was putting this up a crane, I might want to also control button on, button off.
Yes.
Can I do that?
You can. The Redrock allows you. There's a special cable that plugs into the controller box, and I've got run and stop on the Epic. You have to program it. We got a little caught when we first got it. We couldn't get it to work, but you need to tell the controller what sort of camera. So if you've got an Alexa, you would tell it's an Alexa, and it'll give you a run control as well. So we just had to tell this, hey, you're working with an Epic. Once it did that, we just press the button on the controller. I have to say my focus puller did make a point that the button is here. And ergonomically, that's not, this is a quibble, but it's not ideal. Because what you would do, you set up your shot, you're all ready to go, and you're getting in position, you've got your marks, and then someone says run, and I've got to go, run, and I'm back. As opposed to a button somewhere here on the side that I can be ready to go, run, and not take my fingers and eyes off the controller. So, look, a small quibble. But
So this controller is obviously live at the moment,
yep,
and it's setting up, and you've got stops set up here on the
yes,
hand unit, but you've also configured this, I noticed,
look,
kind of
I've cheated.
interestingly.
It goes back to what we were talking about, the short throws on these lenses. I was most interested, for me, look, remotely controlling the focus is kind of handy, but not super critical. And again, 99% of the time, the assistant can stand right there and pull the focus. But it's the remapping that I was most keen on. So I'm finding on these stills lenses with so much of the throw given away to distances under 3 or 4 feet, which, again, vast majority of the time is not useful. I've used these gears that these are $5 out of China, these things, but I've used the actual mounting point on this gear as a hard stop.
Got one there, I'll just hold that up
Yeah,
for you. So you're talking about this actually physically hitting
the motor.
Right.
So I set that up so it comes to 3 feet, it hits that and it thinks, hard stop. So it's not going all around for the rest of which I'm never going to use. So that 270 is now mapped to a smaller area. So that's a big plus. I'm getting a much nicer, better control, big fat turns for the assistant. So instead of moving, a millimetre on the controller, so you could do that with manual, but I think in terms of battle conditions, you want to get lenses on and off if you're using primes fast. So if I set up for fake hard stop, whack it on, auto calibrate, bingo, let's go.
Yeah, because some lenses, like this one, have a hard stop, and I could auto calibrate that, and
Yes,
hard stop is hard stop is hard stop, right?
Yep.
So I wouldn't need to worry.
Yep.
But obviously on other ones like that one, is completely no concept of a hard stop.
Yes, so you will need to manually calibrate it. It's not a complex, you just tell it where infinity is and then go back. So because you're manually calibrating anyway, you just go back to the point you want. You might only say 10 feet. And again, you've got that much wider, more macro.
Yeah, one of the points that you were making earlier, which I just want to make sure everyone's really clear on, is this remapping. Because clearly, and we were joking about this before we rolled, that quite often people sit here and do this, but that would be literally pulling focus from infinity to 3 feet,
Yeah,
which is a shot, but it's not a shot that comes up all the time.
Very rarely.
It's me here and I take a step back or forward, or I walk around you, and I'm just talking about a foot or two difference. So that subtlety is what...
The absolute vast majority of shots that you're pulling focus on is a very subtle move. which is where these lenses struggle, of course, because you're not pulling from 3 feet to 20 feet. You're pulling from 3'6" to 3'9". As an actor, it just can literally be just changing his body weight and slipping in and out of focus. So you want to be able to have that lovely fine control on the motors. And I find by remapping, I'm getting that with the ZFs. I think if I had really stiff lenses, because I've had to ramp up that torque to push the motor, then I might be struggling with that smoothness.
Okay, now I just want to say that when I first saw this at NAB, I was enthusiastic about two things I'm not seeing here. So let me ask you about them. Firstly, was that there was a sonic rangefinder that again wasn't...
Which we did do in the tests.
So that's all working?
It's all available. It's again under $1,000.
That's really cheap.
It's very, very cheap. The competitors, you'd be looking at something like around the $8,000 mark.
I should say
at least.
Affordable, assuming that it works. Did it work for you?
It did work. We measured it out. The accuracy was good within around an inch. It is a sonar system and it's not focusable. So as you push out, they say to about 20 feet, which is about right. We were getting pretty accurate readings to the 20-foot mark.
You mean because the cone that would come out from the...
Yes.
Right.
And I suppose, you know, because it's literally sonar, the accuracy would fall off past 20 feet, and they just say don't bother. Now the sonar, it's kind of, I suppose what you have to be careful is not magic. You can't stick that on and think, wow, it's going to be so easy now. I just read the dial. It says 5'6" on a dial, 5'6". The sound is dumb. So if you've got two actors in an over-shoulder shot, it's going to pick the first actor. If someone crosses it, there's a whole sorts of give-me's that will limit its effectiveness. But as a quick reference, it's absolutely fantastic. There's a little laser in it, so you can aim it where you want it. You're looking at about a 30-inch cone around the 7-10 foot mark, which is pretty much, once you go past 20 feet, you tend to have fairly good depth anyway.
Sure, but that cone would be a head width, right? Which is like the sort of thing we're obviously aiming at is often an actor.
Yes, absolutely. I will probably buy one and add that to our system, but it's not an absolute... look, it's a personal preference thing. I think it's a great gadget, and I think that what Redrock planned to do is this controller, there'll be another version that has an iPhone in it.
Well, that's the second thing I was going to say, because the second thing I saw at you don't have here at NAB was that iPhone clicks-in hand controller that was just to die for.
Absolutely, and I think that is coming.
But not out yet.
Not out yet. Maybe call me a traditionalist. I'm happy. I don't need my iPhone in there because people will start playing Angry Birds on it eventually when it gets a bit dull. And it tells you things like depth of field, but any decent focus puller is going to have a very good idea what the depth of field is anyway. And allowing the focus to be controlled by the rangefinder could work on some shots. Having said that, if you've got a good focus puller, you'll get it anyway. But look, it's a valuable asset, and at the price, as I say, you get a freaking laser on your camera, and that could be worth $900.
But as I understand it, if I did mount it on here, I would no longer be able to do my stop-start, because there's only one port here, isn't there?
Yeah, there's only one accessory port, and unless there's a way I don't know, because this is a brand new device, you cannot run two accessories at the same time. So if you've got your rangefinder on, you're not using your run stop for any camera. I will qualify that. For me, that's not hugely problematic. The run stop's a nice luxury, and I think if I was mounting where the run stop was critical, like I was on a crane, I couldn't access the camera, I'm not using the rangefinder. Because I will add that the rangefinder, unlike some other models, does not have a separate box which gives you the readings. So the reading of distance is on the rangefinder itself, which again is fine. Most of the time you're there, the camera's accessible, but if you put it on the crane or you put it somewhere inaccessible, the rangefinder's of no value anyway.
Okay, I just want to ask you about that actually, because clearly this configuration works exceedingly well when you have a really good person doing focus pulling, which is a craft we have an enormous amount of respect for. But what is the applicability of this if I'm sort of an owner-operator that's going to go run and gun and put it on my shoulder? Okay. Can I still use it, or? Yeah,
absolutely. The controller is wireless, but you can use a non-wireless version, and this is a finger wheel controller. It's very clever. This will be hardwired, and I'd put that on the handle.
On your handle of your shoulder rig. Yep.
And then I could do the focus with my thumb.
Okay. What do you think about that? Because it seems like that could be kind of handy.
I've set it up and it works, of course. I think it'd be very handy, especially cameras like the Epic. It's such an odd shape. if you plonk it on your camera, it's so small, you end up with a lens there. I operate with the viewfinder, and so what happens is I haven't got access to the lens. I've got the lens here, which A, is stupidly uncomfortable anyway, but then I've got a viewfinder covering my eyes, so I literally end up with my hand coming up over like this, or dropping my hand in around the viewfinder like this. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. This would have freed my hand either for a second mousse bar or for just stability. You'd have to get used to it like anything else. I found it when I tested it was a little overly sensitive, but if I limited my range on my lenses again on these short throw lenses, then I solved that problem.
Right, okay.
Well, they're very cheap. This is not the standard one. I paid extra for a clamp.
Yep.
The standard one works with the Redrock handle, but I wanted something a bit more generic that I could plonk literally anywhere. But I think it's $200 odd. You'd be mad not to add that to your system.
So, bottom line, given that this is a setup that is designed for a purpose, so it's not meant to be the definitive one that any focus puller in the world would necessarily go for at a high-end feature level.
Yep.
But for this application, seems like great value for money. What's your sort of...
It is great value for the money for any owner-operator of a large format camera where you've got focus as an issue, especially if you're using stills lenses, which because this system will remap. But even if you're using professional prime lenses, as long as they're not too stiff, you've got that added advantage of a remote focus system. I'd recommend it. Where I wouldn't recommend it, if I was a professional AC and I was going from job to job, I never knew from the next day what lenses are. They could end up being giant Optimos or whatever. I think this wouldn't be the system. I think you'd be caught out.
But someone like that would be going for a multi-channel device probably anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we are into like the 23,000 kind of range.
You can spend an amazing level of money. And of course, you do pay for what you get. The amazing value that Redrock offers, it's probably not as bulletproof and as flexible and as strong as, say, a Preston system.
Yeah, but then again, if you're in that environment where that is outside your price range, you really haven't had anywhere else to go, right? It's
absolutely. If you're an owner-operator running a system with a set of Zeiss ZFs, you'd be mad to spend more money on your follow focus system than on your camera.
Well, thanks so much for that, and I want to thank everybody else that was involved in the test with the Australian Cinematographer Society. Terrific work. We appreciate everybody's contribution to this, Tom. It's been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.